Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Keegan Simser, and I'm the president of Student Government Association here at Blinn, Bryan. We are very excited about this forum and hope that it proves beneficial for everyone. Student Government is co-sponsoring this event along with Phi Theta Kappa. Before we get into it, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Student Government is and why we chose to co-sponsor this event. Student Government acts as a voice between the students to ensure that the students have the opportunity to voice any concerns they have and recommend any changes they'd like to see in order to improve campus life. We work with all of the clubs and organizations here at Blinn to inform students about what events are going on, where they are happening, and when they occur. With that, I'd once again like to thank everybody for being here today. I'll now turn it over to our Phi Theta Kappa representative to introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jordan Dunlap, and I'm here on behalf of Phi Theta Kappa, and here at Blinn, we're the Alpha Phi Lambda chapter, and it's basically an honor society for two-year colleges. And it's my first year in the program, and I'm really excited to be here. I'll be taking any questions that you have after the forum is over, and at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Richard Bray.
Thanks, Jordan. Let me begin by thanking the Blinn Bryan Student Government Association and Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society for hosting this afternoon's forum. I also would like to thank each of you for your interest in Blinn College's campus carry implementation and guidelines, and thank you in advance for sharing your thoughts, questions, and ideas. Today's forum is an opportunity for Blinn's Campus Carry Task Force to share information regarding Senate Bill 11, to provide you with an update on our progress in preparation for the law going into effect at Blinn on August 1st, 2017, and for each of you to ask questions and share your thoughts regarding campus carry at Blinn College. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. Sorry about that. At this time, please allow me to introduce the members of our panel. Dr. Dennis Krausen, Senior Vice President of Student Services. Mel Waxler, Executive Vice President and General Counsel. Dr. Joyce Langenegger, Director of Professional Development, Professor and Chair of the Task Force's Communications Subcommittee. Craig Wiesepoppy, Blinn College Chief of Police. James Reed, Director of Housing. And Keegan Simser, President of the Bryan Campus Student Government Association. As some of you may know, the 84th Texas Legislature passed Senate Bill 11, commonly known as the Campus Carry Law. This law went into effect last August for public Texas universities and goes into effect for Texas community colleges on August 1st, 2017. On that date, individuals holding a concealed handgun license will have the legal right to carry a concealed handgun into community college buildings. Among other requirements to be eligible for a license to carry a concealed handgun, individuals must be at least 21 years of age or active military, not have been convicted of a felony or currently be charged with a Class A or B misdemeanor, be fully qualified under federal and state law to purchase a handgun, not be delinquent in the payment of taxes or child support payments, not be restricted under a restraining order, and must have completed the concealed handgun license training. It is important to note that concealed carry license holders must follow the laws governing concealed carry and may not open carry on university or college campuses. Senate Bill 11 allows the president of each community college to establish reasonable rules and regulations regarding concealed handguns after consulting with students, staff, and faculty. To facilitate this process, Blinn has established a campus carry task force to provide recommendations to the district president and CEO, Dr. Mary Hensley. This task force consists of 34 faculty, staff, and students from across the Blinn College District. Members were selected based upon their willingness to participate, their training or experience related to the issue, and with the goal of representing the diverse backgrounds of Blinn's faculty, staff, and students district-wide. Dr. Mary Hensley, Blinn College District President and CEO, has charged the task force with providing her with recommendations for the implementation of Senate Bill 11 at Blinn College. As you can see, these charges will uphold the integrity of the law, ensure the safety and security of everyone on all campuses, and foster a climate of mutual respect. Recommended guidelines, rules, procedures, and practices must ensure compliance with the requirements of existing laws regulating concealed carry or license to carry for campus residential facilities, single occupant offices, designated exclusion zones for laboratories and other hazardous areas, areas where minor children are present, patient care areas, formal hearing areas for faculty, staff, and students, an appeals process, and notification and signage. These recommendations should be based upon significant input from students, faculty, and staff, and others as appropriate, along with task force members' expertise. Recommendations shall be delivered to the district president and CEO no later than April 30th, 2017 to ensure sufficient time for review. The task force's goal is to provide its recommendations to the district president and CEO later this month, so that she might present Blinn's reasonable rules to the Board of Trustees for review and approval by May 2017, in advance of the rules going into effect on August 1st. It is important to note that Senate Bill 11 requires justification for any areas in which campus carry is banned in order to ensure that the policies and guidelines put into place do not violate the spirit of the law. As such, Blinn's Campus Carry Task Force must complete its task within the framework of the law as passed by the Texas Legislature. Upon its establishment, the task force began to research the policies and procedures implemented by the state's public universities. This slide here shows a snippet of the Dallas Morning News Campus Carry Tracker, which you can access from Blinn's Campus Carry website at blinn.edu/campus-carry. As you can see, it provides an easy-to-read summary of how different universities across the state of Texas have developed guidelines regarding campus carry. For example, each Texas public university has banned concealed carry at sporting events. Some universities have banned concealed carry from dormitories, while others have banned concealed carry at gymnasiums. In addition to reviewing the campus carry reports generated by Texas universities, Blinn's Campus Carry Task Force visited with Chris Meyer, the Assistant Vice President for Safety and Security, and the Campus Carry Task Force co-chair at Texas A&M University regarding the lessons Texas A&M's Campus Carry Task Force learned through its own implementation process. Mr. Meyer recommended that Blinn gather as much input as possible throughout the process. Establish enforceable implementation rules. Place responsibility for compliance on the license holder. And host multiple presentations outlining the adopted policies upon completion. The task force also gathered information from Judicial Officer B.J. Hegemeyer regarding the training license holders undergo to obtain their license to carry, and from Officer Chris Luttrell regarding the active shooter and other safety training offered to students, faculty, and staff on all Blinn College campuses. To streamline its tasks, the task force divided into 4 subcommittees. These subcommittees were community engagement, which was tasked with engaging faculty, staff, administrators, students, and the community in the implementation planning process. Communications, which partners with local media and the college's communications department to provide information to students, faculty, and staff, and the community. Designated gun-free designated areas. This is the largest subcommittee on the task force, and it establishes the processes for identifying gun-free zones and recommending designations. And the final report development committee prepares the report documenting the task force's recommendations to the district president and CEO. To begin today's forum, we have prepared several questions that we believe will provide valuable information regarding campus carry at Blinn College, then open the floor to public questions. Members of PTK are on hand to help us identify those of you who have any questions, and they'll provide you with a microphone so everybody can hear both the question and the answer. Before we begin asking questions, I would like to encourage each of you to visit Blinn's Campus Carry webpage at blinn.edu/campus-carry, where we have compiled a great deal of information regarding Senate Bill 11, Blinn's Campus Carry Task Force, our implementation timeline, as well as frequently asked questions. Let me begin by directing the first question to Dr. Dennis Krausen. How many students actually will be able to carry a concealed handgun if the age limit is 21?
Thanks, Rich. Hopefully you can hear me okay. When we look at our numbers of students who are 21 or less, overall, system-wide, we've got about 1,300 of our students are 21 or less. That's out of a population of about 19,000, or a little less than 7%. When we just look at the Bryan campus itself, our numbers show about 500 full-time students and about 350 part-time students are under 21. So approximately 850, again, out of about 12,000. So about 7% of our students are going to be 21 or over.
May I, Rich?
Absolutely.
So I just want to be sure that we're clear on that. The numbers that you provided are students that are over 21 or under 21?
Oh, over 21. I may have missaid that. Yeah, over 21. About 7% are over 21.
So the numbers are fairly small.
Very small, 7%.
As a
right?
percentage of the total. Thank you.
Did I say under? Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. Second question is, what does concealed mean? Chief Weezapoppy.
Concealed, the weapon has to be hidden.
I'm going to use the mic, Chief.
Okay. The weapon has to be hidden. It can't be in plain view. So if you should see a weapon, you should call the campus police.
Excellent. What if there are students who do not agree with and or feel unsafe with fellow students being able to carry weapons? Mr. Waxler.
Well, as many of you know, there has been a great debate about guns in Texas. The debate continues. The legislature is meeting at this time. My guess is that with regard to the campus carry law, what we're hearing from the leadership of both the House and the Senate is that there is unlikely to be any major changes in the campus carry law, although there are numerous bills that have been filed with regard to guns and the regulation thereof. Students are going to agree or disagree. There are going to be faculty members who are going to agree or disagree with the law. There are a lot off campus who are going to agree or disagree with the law. But the fact of the matter is the law is the law. So in the charge to the task force that you saw a little earlier, you will note that the task force members have been asked to balance various interests. So there is the interest of the safety of all students. Some will argue that we're safer if there is concealed carry. Some will argue that we're better off if there are no guns in various vicinities. But the fact of the matter is, and in the law we talk about something called a rebuttable presumption. The presumption is that you are allowed to carry. That's what the law says. The presumption is in favor of concealed carry, not open carry on college campuses, but concealed carry. So as Rich mentioned earlier, any rebuttal to the presumption requires a justification. Will require of this task force a justification as to why not necessarily why. So for students who do not agree and or who feel safe, there will be trainings, educational opportunities, and of course there will be responsible administrators and student representatives that any student can go to. Because Blinn College, while wanting to respect the right of concealed carry, does not want its students to feel unsafe on campus.
Chief Weezapoppy, will carriers be required to have a psychological evaluation prior to being issued a license to carry?
No, they do not require a psychological what you have to do is you have to fill out an application, and you're also going to have to submit your fingerprints electronically when you apply. So on these questionnaires that they have questions on there: alcohol, drug abuse, things like that are on there that you'll have to fill in. Like I said, if you have a Class A misdemeanor, Class B, or any of the felonies, you're not going to be able to get a license. You're not eligible.
Chief, I've got another question for you. Well, what happens to individuals who have never seen a gun before? Will there be any education offered to make students feel safer?
We're in the early stages of developing a training program for students to better cope with firearms. Like I said, we're still in the starting phases of it. We will be putting on campuses.
I will say, for what it's worth, the chief and I work closely together, and I'm fully expecting that we'll have this done and available to students prior to the opening of the fall semester. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Everybody heard that? That was a yes.
It's a yes.
Mr. Waxler, why would legislators allow college students the right to carry concealed handguns on campus? Would this not lead to more violence?
Well, there are arguments on both sides of this. And far be it from me to speak for our legislators, but please know that if you have an opinion and you wish to share it, the legislature is in session. You certainly can ask your representative what his or her position might be. You can share your opinions with your legislator. As I mentioned earlier, there is a fair debate about this, and there is data. For those of you who believe that data should drive decisions, there is plenty of data out in the community that speaks to this. Once again, I would note a couple of things. One, the law is the law. If you want to learn more about Senate Bill 11, then by all means, go take a look at it. And that is the law that gives us guidance. Two, we're very fortunate in that the legislature asked four-year universities to put rules in place prior to requiring the same of community colleges. So we've had the benefit of watching Texas A&M and other four-year universities work through all of the issues and come up with policies and procedures. And since, of course, we do have students that go back and forth, the extent to which we are able to align what we do with what A&M does may reduce any confusion. Now, having said that, the rules may not be identical. And so when a student is on the campus at A&M, the A&M rules apply. And when the student is on the campus of Blinn, the Blinn rules apply. Now, has Blinn College adopted its rules? No, we have not. This is all part of the process. The charge says we need to be talking with you all. And while the committee has proceeded to look at a lot of issues, no final decisions have been made. And you'll hear more about the community engagement aspects of this a little bit later. But the questions that you ask and the opinions that you share matter to us. So whether you're a student who is for, or a student who is against, or otherwise just uncomfortable, please feel free to speak up. And again, as to the specific question about why would legislators allow college students the right to carry concealed handguns on campus, it is because they believe that that is a safer modality than not allowing them. And again, let me underscore, the numbers of students on our campus who have the right to conceal carry are a very small percentage of the totality of students on the campus, for what that's worth.
Mr. Waxler, how will you know who has a registered firearm or not?
You won't. So when we call it concealed carry, it means just that. It's concealed. So there may be instances in which someone inadvertently displays a weapon. If in fact it is inadvertent, there are no consequences for that. Now, that doesn't stop a student who is in fear or concerned from calling the police and saying, I want you to know I just saw somebody carrying a weapon on the campus. And they'll probably ask you, how do you know? What were the facts, the circumstances under which you saw it? If there is somebody who is flagrantly showing what should be a concealed handgun, well, there are consequences for that. And again, a call to the police would be appropriate. In Brenham, which is a predominantly residential dormitory campus, there are going to be some additional questions that will have to be answered about keeping weapons within residential housing. But again, we're pretty fortunate because A&M has already gone down that path, and we're looking very seriously at what they've done, how they've done it, and we may be benefited from their experience.
Chief, can you tell us what responsibility a concealed carry permit holder has to keep his or her weapon concealed? And are license to carry holders violating the terms of their permit if someone gets a glimpse of their weapon?
It is their responsibility to keep that weapon concealed. It is a Class A misdemeanor if you do see it. But there are times now that somebody might be, like bending over or lifting. You may see just the bulge of it into somebody's coat or something. The best way I can tell you to handle it is to always just call the police. Call the campus police if you see something like that, and let them handle it from there.
That leads directly into our next question to Keegan. What do I do if I see a gun that is not fully concealed?
Yeah, so just like Mr. Waxler and the chief said, if you see an unconcealed gun, you're going to want to call the police, either 911 or the Blinn College Police Department, if you notice it, and like Mr. Waxler said, explain the circumstances.
No, Mr. Waxler, will students be able to concealed carry in individual instructors' offices?
Great question. This is particularly a question of great interest to faculty on university campuses. I have to go back to that rebuttable presumption again. The presumption is that a concealed license to carry will allow weapons of a concealed nature in a faculty member's office. If there are exceptions to this, if the faculty member seeks to accept his or her office permanently or for some temporary purpose, there may be a process. Again, remember, all the answers have not been provided because the task force hasn't completed its work, made recommendations to Dr. Hensley, who will make recommendations to the Board of Trustees, who will actually take a final vote. But based on the conversations we're all having at this time, and based on what we've seen come out of A&M and other universities, again, the presumption is concealed carry just about anywhere. Some exceptions, but those exceptions have to be justified, right? That's the rebuttable part of it. And there'll be a process, I think, recommended for a faculty member or others to seek exceptions to the general rule that you can conceal carry.
No, Mr. Waxler, would concealed carry be limited to only a few classrooms?
Again, so the decisions of the task force are yet to come. So I really can't answer this. But I guess I would just underscore what I just said. The general rule is if you have a concealed handgun license, then the presumption is you get to carry. And the rebuttable nature of the presumption is that you'll have to justify to the college uh, uh, when that should not be permissible, and you'll have to get approval from the college um, uh, not to allow guns into various spaces. Now, again, so I'm putting on my creative lawyer's hat, and I'm going to suggest that if, for example, there is an appeal of some dispute as part of a formal process in a faculty member's office, then maybe that is justification for a rebut to the presumption that you can carry a concealed handgun. There is likely going to be no handgun concealed in a formal appeals process. So there are going to be some instances in which there will be designated spaces where concealed carry will not be permitted. But again, for the most part, um, the committee is looking at what other universities have done, and particularly A&M determining that the presumption is to carry. The rebuttable part of that presumption is to justify why you shouldn't, and then to be sure you posted signs as the law requires and gotten the proper approvals.
James, how are the campus gun-free areas determined?
All right, thank you, Rich. Kind of echo what Mr. Waxler just said. It's not fully determined yet, but we do have a subcommittee that was mentioned earlier by Rich that is meeting often to go through the law itself and setting certain criteria and guidelines, so to speak, for where those locations can be. And I'll kind of go ahead and lead into the next question, if that's okay.
Go for it.
The criteria for those locations are coming straight out of that law itself. And those locations are, just to give you a few examples, a sporting event, religious premises. We have been talking a lot about, Mr. Waxler just mentioned, conduct, appeal, hearing locations. So if you're in a professor's office and you're discussing a conduct situation, a academic dishonesty situation, that could be a temporary location. Any location where harmful substances are located, for example, your biology classroom, chemistry locations where there could be a substance that's quite harmful, we don't want any accidents happening. And patient care areas where you're talking about your counseling center, maybe the nurse's office where a patient would be taken care of. Those are some of the clear guidelines, so to speak, that we can say, hey, this location is somewhere on campus where we don't need to have a gun in that location. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. Joyce, how will I know if an area is designated as a gun-free area?
Well, if you've been to HEB and you've seen the signs that are posted at HEB, those are in compliance with Section 30.6 of the Texas Penal Code, and you will see similar signs in areas where guns are banned. The law is very specific. The language will be exactly as you've seen at HEB, and there's a minimum size to the signage. It must be contrasting color, the sign with the lettering, so that it's very obvious to anyone who's in that area that this is a designated gun-free zone.
Thank you. Mr. Waxler, can a member of the Blinn College community post signage that prohibits handguns in their offices, classrooms, or other workspaces?
So I'm a lawyer. I'm typically wordy, but I've got a one-word answer for this one, and that is no.
And Joyce, where on campus would you be allowed to carry?
Well, I think you've heard a lot of discussion about the fact that we have this rebuttable presumption that it looks as if without appropriate justification, just about anywhere. Again, you want to be alert to where you see the signage. And a lot of it is event based. So, for example, if a high school were sponsoring some event in this room, you might see a temporary sign placed outside this room because it is a high school sponsored event.
Excellent. That's all of our prepared questions. Jordan's here with PTK, and she's got a microphone. So if you have any questions of your own or any insight or input that you would like to provide, raise your hand, catch her attention, and she'll give you the microphone so that everybody can hear your question, hear your thoughts. So now, yeah, we're opening the floor up to you guys.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name's Andrew Anderson. This question is going to be directed at Chief Wheezy Pappy. What are some of the standard operating procedures that the Blinn campus police are going to have to adopt when interacting with students potentially concealed carrying?
You said to interact?
Yes, sir.
If we get, like, say, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, just let me know. But if we get the call that somebody is on campus that has a weapon, we will go down, we'll ID, we will check their license to carry to make sure that they legitimate have one.
Yes, sir, that answers it.
That answers it?
Chief, I've got a follow-up question on that. That was a really an important question. What do you do in a situation where you get a call, but you determine it's an overreaction, or you get a call from a student and it's a hoax? What do you do in cases like that?
Well, if it's a false report, if it's a false report, then we're going to start open up a case and investigate it. What was the first one you asked me?
Overreaction.
Well, you're going to have some of them. It's new to everybody here. We're going to investigate it, and then the officer will let you know as he starts to work through the case.
Two, I hope that the education that we do makes a difference in this arena. I have been watching A&M since it implemented its rules and regulations. It's been very quiet on the A&M campus. I think that's just how we'd like to see it happen here. I am aware that A&M did a whole lot of reaching out, a whole lot of communication with its stakeholders, and I'm thinking that it's that kind of proactive outreach that has helped to create a very quiet, peaceful situation so far.
Good afternoon. My question is, are we going to have a notification system for professors and just the Blinn College knowing what students have a concealed carry license, or is it just going to be like in public, like at a grocery store, where there is no list of who is eligible and who's going to be carrying?
Do you want me to take this one?
Please do.
Great question. Thank you for your question. There will be no list. The reason it's called concealed carry is because nobody else is supposed to know. As a result, there are no lists. So, yes, it's more like an HEB situation. Thank you.
We have a question right up here.
As a slight rebuttal, there is a list maintained by police agencies. So if you feel in fear or anything and you call the Blinn police or whomever, they are able to determine whether or not a person has a concealed handgun license legally by running them through the system. So there is a list. It's just not for public use. So that is maintained.
May I? Just a clarification on this. I want everybody to know that Blinn College Police Department does not maintain a list.
Yeah,
I think what the gentleman is saying is that if Blinn Police want to know if somebody has a concealed a license to carry concealed, then they have the ability to contact the state to determine whether or not X person who is the subject of some investigation, but that is not something that they would be doing arbitrarily.
Right. At
Yes.
first, they would sit there and go and have the presumption of innocence
Thank
and
you.
talk to the person. And then if there was a question, there is a method for them to find out if it's been a falsified identification or anything else. So there is a list that's maintained. And as they were talking about earlier in terms of psychological, a part of getting your license and then doing the fingerprinting is that they do run background checks to see if you've ever been committed, if there's ever been an injunction by court or something like that. So there are protections that the state does to help with making sure that qualified individuals have their concealed license. One of the comments I would make is I was just at the State of the State address that the governor gave on the other day, and there were actually individuals in the Capitol walking around in concealed carry and open carry. It's not just legal here. At the state capitol, where there are legislators, things can get very heated. There are people walking around, the Texas Rangers, having open carry. The people who generally carry are very well informed on where they can and where they can't, what's going on. So,
Thank you.
Is there any way to appease students and faculty who are so concerned about the open carry, or not open, concealed carry, that they won't know who in their classroom has a gun, who doesn't? Is there any way to appease them so that they know these people know what they're doing, they know not to go crazy, and is there any way to show them these people are educated, know what they're doing, and keep them from being concerned about the safety of themselves or their students?
Sure. I think our best action in helping those students, those faculty members, and that staff is the education part of that. We mentioned earlier that our judicial officer, Miss B.J. Hagemeyer, she actually trains people on the course, and she probably be one of the most likely people who are going to come do some programs for us and show those students and those instructors this is what a person who's getting a license has to go through. Kind of show those steps, the training process, the rigorous, that goes into that rigor that they have to qualify for and pass those tests to get the weapons and be able to carry that with the age limits and things like that. So I think with the programming, having information available from individuals who have gone through that can really help ease that tension that could be there, and just continued programming from our police department, our student leadership offices, and SGA and PTK even to just put stuff out there for students and faculty to know, hey, this is what it's about, this is why it's here, and just kind of make where everybody feels comfortable with it, where there isn't a situation in a classroom where anyone would feel uncomfortable, but still relying on the fact that it is concealed and we really can't know who it is.
This is a great question, and I'm wondering if I could impose upon you and turn it back to you. What would you like to see the college do to help make students who are concerned feel safer?
I personally am for the concealed carry policy because it's, in my mind, I know if I'm not 21 yet, but I know that if there's somebody that is 21 and has a gun, I'm putting my life in their hands, and I trust them to put their self first before they're concerned with somebody else coming after them. So I personally think that education is probably the best way to say these people know what they're doing. They've been well trained. They've got this entire background of people know who they are, what they've done, and there's such I'm not sure what the right word is, but there's such a process that you have to go through that these people that the government knows, yes, they've been through this, they have this, they are licensed to carry a concealed handgun.
Thank you for that. The purpose of this is not only to give you an opportunity to ask questions, but also to share your own thoughts and feelings with us. And if you think it would be helpful, and it sounds to me like we may be doing it anyway, To give students access to B.J. Hegemeyer, it was a real eye opener to me to see what anyone having to get a license has to go through. She gave a presentation on it, and maybe she could provide additional presentations to students and to others in this regard. Thank you.
Sorry, I just thought of a question. You had said earlier that obviously medical care facilities will not be eligible for concealed handgun license locations. Totally understandable. That's generally the case everywhere. However, what is the plan for a concealed handgun license holder who needs to go in and get medical attention? Nobody can get that handgun off of him unless they are also a concealed handgun license holder. So that restricts their ability to get medical attention if they need it.
You want me to take it? Or you want to take it?
You may not have an answer.
We really don't.
That's
right. And part of that's going to be dependent upon the situation. If it's a situation where the person, say, is incapacitated, unconscious, or something like that, we're going to have a 911 call or the police there, and they will be able to take care of that.
Ambulance holder, very low walk, and they're just having issues to get medical attention.
Well, I think what we're going to have to do, and again, we really don't have an answer. It's an excellent question and one to really think about. I would suspect that we're going to need to have some type of private area, and our health care area is somewhat private, to where if a person is licensed, that in private they can or cannot remove their weapon. And I think the key here is we don't want to really showcase that the person is able or unable to be carrying a weapon. So I think privacy would be the key there.
I may even offer them a safe.
Yes.
Just like we do in the residential.
And Mr. Waxner makes a good point. May offer, if desired, some type of secure. Exactly.
Family
Yeah. Good question, and good things for us to think about, because we're all new to this law, just like each of you are. And so,
us veterans have licenses, so there are difficulties that we deal with because we want to be compliant. We want to follow the law. However, sometimes there are issues. For example, my father was in church and he went down and he's had cancer, he's had issues. He passed out, he was unconscious. It was a sudden attack. My mom had to take his gun and put it in her purse. She's not a concealed handgun license. She can't be flashing that around church.
Right.
So, there are issues that arise.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here to make us aware of the issues so we can work with everybody to figure out what to do under these circumstances.
There was a question right there, and then one in the back.
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Aaron Smith. I'm a 17-year Marine veteran. A lot of training, firearms. I actually got my license about a year ago when I got off active duty. So just for some of you out there, I mean, the process to go through, especially in the state of Texas, it's a good process. I mean, they do their due diligence, on their background checks. Not everybody can get a license. I mean, we said 7% of 21 and older, but not all of those 7% can carry a license. How many have Class A or Class B misdemeanors? Right. So that number could actually be reduced, the percentage. Like I said, I have a lot of experience, and when we have to go to part of the training is you have to go to a firearms range, and you have to qualify on a target. So there's a certain amount of shots that you have to hit on the target. And to be quite honest, I didn't know the experience level of everybody that was in my class, and so for me, especially as a firearms instructor, was kind of scary. All right. But the training is good. The people that are out there, I mean, they take it very serious. The instructors, the firearm instructors. I'm actually in the process of trying to get my my certification through the state to be a firearm instructors. So there's a lot of, like I said, it's not an easy process, and they do that on purpose. They kind of try to weed out those that can't get that or shouldn't have that license. All right. Question though I do have, you're talking about training. Is that so? There's a couple questions here. Is that training is it a one-time, just once we get this established, kind of everybody, because once we get it going, throughout the year, it's going to be, it's not going to really matter. Or is this going to be an ongoing where every semester you're going to have training, and as part of that training, are you going to have to go into probably for those that have those concealed license, the escalation of force and use of deadly force if need be?
I'll go ahead and take that.
Okay.
For the training itself, given the nature of a community college, the turnover of students naturally every semester is enormous. So those trainings would be happening semesterly for just not the training you're discussing, but like training of just letting someone know, for the professor, for the staff member, for that student, here's what a gun looks like, all the way up to having someone come show what a training is about. For the police already put on is active shooter trainings and things like that, to what to do and what not to do. Those would have to be semester type things that take place, just to be able to capture the students who we are gaining newly every semester. And just to, as a refresher, as a staff member, I've been here 4 years, I forget things. So it would be nice for me to see that every semester, to know, hey, I forgot about that. I forgot about that's the exit, those type of situations. So I think semesterly is our answer to that. And we make sure the students are aware, staff's aware, faculty knows what to do. And with that, communication will help solve a lot of the problems that could arise.
I'd like to ask Dr. Langenacre, who chairs the communications committee, if your committee would spend some time, doesn't have to be before the end of February, but reacting to this question and proposing some specific recommendations with regard to the training and education that we would want to see happen on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely.
Would you be willing
Yes.
to? Great, thank you.
I want to piggyback real quick. And first of all, thank you for your service. And I appreciate you serving the country and being here, and then providing us some good food for thought as well. You mentioned not that many people that are eligible to carry will carry, and state records show that about 2.7% of the eligible population will actually have their CHL. So if you put that into our number, so if we have 850 people on this campus that are over 21, we're talking about 21 students. So it's not a large number. So, there was a question in the very back, if we can get him. So.
One of the arguments made for the this law actually being passed was the fact that hopefully those concealed carriers can actually go ahead and protect those individuals that would be under threat under a unfortunate event of a school shooting. So in that event that the concealed carry person does act and prevent or protect people from tragic events such as that, what would be the punishments, if any, would be for that individual?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the very last part of it? What would be the
punishments, if any,
were
to be implemented towards that individual that saved those, even though he violated the idea of the concealed carry?
It's a great question, and it's really very fact specific. We can think of a myriad of circumstances that might occur that would cause a license holder to go to his weapon under the circumstances. I think what we typically say, obviously, they're trained in this regard. From a lawyer's point of view, it's a decision you have to make often in a split second. But man, you've got to be careful about accessing that weapon, because you will find yourself in years worth of litigation and discovery and depositions. And so, it's like, on the one hand, no good deed goes unpunished. On the other hand, it's good to know that there's somebody there who can take the necessary action. Your question poses an amazing dilemma to the concealed license holders. And as a lawyer, you asked me what are the consequences. Um, I could take that to the nth extreme if you are a license holder, and then I can take it to the nth degree if you are a license holder and somehow you don't react under certain circumstances. So, I wish I could teach a course, a full semester course just on this question. It's a great question. I don't have an easy answer to it.
Good afternoon. What would be the concealed handgun license holders' res- responsibilities interacting with the Blinn response team?
That's a great question. We're all looking at each other, and through the nonverbal, we're saying, "Oh my God, we've been meeting for 6 months now, and this one's not really come up." I do think, though, that it's part and parcel with the training and education that has to occur. So when I asked Dr. Langenegger to use her communications committee to explore this area, I think that is a part of what's central to her exploration. Let me, again, with your permission, come back and ask you, what would you recommend?
Well, there's a few different trains of thought between either just stay in the classroom and protect that classroom, but there's also the people that have a CHL they have the CHL to protect themselves and to protect others. And chances are they're going to head towards the situation that needs to be resolved rather than being passive and waiting. It would be.
So, excuse me just a second. I think the one thing we want to do is just let every individual speak their mind. We appreciate it. No matter what anyone says, we consider it valid and important input. And then it does dawn on me, Chief, that we do conduct active shooter training. And so we might want to talk about that a bit. When you put forth your hypothetical, it immediately took me to an active shooter training place and a command incident scenario, which we certainly are prepared for and continue to train for. But I hope you will continue to share with us your thinking in this area.
Yes, sir. For my part, I also spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and our training is to head towards the situation and remove it immediately. When there's an active shooter, you don't know who it is, where it's coming from, and last thing you want to do is be roaming around the halls with a firearm out when the Blinn Police Department shows up. How do we have a training system set up to mitigate what someone who's a CHL holder helping versus the actual active shooter?
So it's not fail safe. Correct me on any of this, Chief, as you wish. It's not fail safe. We have talked about a situation in which a concealed license holder is in that situation where they think this is the time that they react. We will tell people, and I assume we do tell people in our training, that when you call in an active shooter, you've got to give as much information as possible to the police, because the police don't know who may be a valid license to carry holder and who is the active shooter. So it's based upon information. For the license holder, you too have to be thinking about, law enforcement's on the way. And am I putting myself in personal danger because, I'm the described guy and holding a pistol? Again, it's a great question. I don't think we have a fail-safe answer to it. I'm not certain yet that there is a fail-safe answer that exists to this question, but the task force will be paying attention to it.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you, and thank you for your service.
Good afternoon. My name is Roland. I'm a student here on campus, and my question is regarding this task force. Have any of you individuals up there today been going to the previous semester faculty campus carry task force input meetings at all? And I have a few questions that kind of build off of that. So if you can
let me
answer
just
that.
say yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
and now I'll return it to you for the additional questions.
Okay. I'm friends with some of the faculty here, and they've been informing me that some of the teachers are pushing an anti-gun agenda, in that they're trying to label this campus as a dual credit campus with high school. That would automatically make it no firearms allowed because of high school students. Secondly, why were none of the students on campus invited to any of the meetings last semester, when I've heard some teachers say that, oh, if we don't send out an email to the students, none of them will show up and be able to put in their input? So I would like your response on that as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. First of all, the Community Engagement Committee of the task force has been working diligently to access student input, faculty input, staff input, community input. That will all be assembled and part of the appendix of the report that is filed. There's this survey that has gone out to faculty and students, and the response appears to have been pretty good. I'm grateful for that. So the charge says we've got to go out for community input, which we would certainly want to do and are doing before we make any recommendations to Dr. Hensley. So I'm not personally aware of the comments that you may have heard, but if you or anybody else has any suggestions for additional community engagement, we're certainly open to it. You talked about dual credit in the very beginning, and so you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think the way and there's been a recent Attorney General's opinion on this, and I think the way the law says is if you are on a high school campus, then you have to abide by the rules of the high school campus. If the activity is on the Blinn campus or a university campus, then those rules apply. So it's not as simple and uncomplicated as I think some of the faculty then may make it seem, because if there are events on the campus, and there may be some high school students in the audience, that will not in and of itself mean that is a gun-free designated zone. Now, it may be subject to an exception to the general rule, and there may be signage, but that will be on a case-by-case basis. Thank you for your question.
And I think that's the kind of event I was talking about, where the high school itself would be sponsoring the event. Dual credit is obviously a Blinn program.
There's also been students on the task force from day one, so they've been a part of the task force.
From all of the campuses, by the way, from Brenham, Bryan, and Sealy and Schulenburg. But needless to say, they are representative, and there have been other means by which students have been asked to participate, including this event.
Great. Any other questions or input?
Okay, just one more question. On the transition between a designated gun-free zone and the rest of the campus, what would be the procedure for preventing people from seeing your handgun as you're stowing it away? And would it have to leave your immediate person, like be in a backpack, or would you have to walk to your car to stow it away?
Again, good questions. I think the task force is going to have to figure that out. We've started talking about residential facilities. I particularly want to know how A&M handles this. But our responsibility is to provide maximum privacy to the license carrier and to provide as much privacy as we can in giving them the opportunity to put it in a private place. Now, in the end, I think this is the way this is going to work. The responsibility ultimately is going to be on the license carrier. It's not going to be on the college. So the license carrier is the one who's going to have to figure out what are my options and how do I want to access those options.
And as a dual credit student, I can say that we have the same rules at Blinn College. Like, there's a completely different set. Like, we have a separate dress code on our collegiate campus where, like, we're not allowed to have certain, like, there's lengths and everything for what clothes we can do. There's different behavioral aspects that we're allowed to present at Blinn per Blinn policy. So this wouldn't prohibit people. Just by me being in the audience, this wouldn't immediately become a gun-free zone.
That's correct. That is correct. Do I understand that you were a student at Bryan Collegiate?
Yes, sir.
Well, congratulations on your A rating. I'm not crazy about ratings, by the way, but an A rating is amazing, and I've been to the campus. It's an amazing program, and welcome here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bogart. Doctor, you said you're in charge of communications.
Yes.
If I might make a suggestion, perhaps some of the training could be YouTube videos. That way, you don't necessarily have to go to a specific event, but you can go and it'll be on eCampus or whatever, and people can access it whenever they might have a question, both for students who have questions and for concealed handgun license holders as to what their duties and responsibilities might be specific to Blinn campus.
Thank you.
As far as comments go, real quickly, I would say that concealed handgun license holders are generally told, first and foremost, never draw unless you're willing to shoot, and every bullet has at least one lawyer's name attached to it.
Good.
So make sure you're hit what you're aiming for.
I'm hoping it's not mine, but otherwise, good.
Yeah. Secondly, it's that you, as a concealed handgun license holder, you're never running to a problem. The only purpose is to protect yourself and your immediate vicinity. That's it. If you're running towards a problem, you're creating a problem. You need to stand fast where you are, and that's part of the training you get as a CHL holder. Some people may interpret it differently, but according to how I was taught, and you know, I did 8 years in the Army and been all over it, so it's a different world. But you are not a Leo. You are not licensed to sit there and wave it around and go running. You can stand in place and protect yourself and those that are around you, but in the end, CHL is only about defense, never offense.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for your input.
Will there be a criteria for someone to carry take their handgun out? Will there be a certain criteria that we have to follow?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by take your handgun out.
Concealed carry. Will there be a criteria in which we can unconceal that weapon? Like step one, you have to call the police. If they're not here within 5 minutes, then
No. it's concealed, so you don't take it out. And in the situation where you got an emergency going on, my guess is you're not going to have a whole lot of time to call the police or what have you. Obviously, if you do, you should. But if it's you're feeling like you have to access your weapon in order to save your own life, that's going to be your judgment call. It's a great question. Yes.
That might mitigate some of the issues with swearing products that, step 1, 2, 3, I mean, that in the case that there was kind of
Absolutely. And most lawyers would say, look, the extent to which you have time to do whatever due diligence to lessen the liability that you may create because you're involved in the situation. But I don't think there's any one answer to that. So, yes.
I have one more question, sorry. Have y'all been looking at crime statistics at both UT Austin and Texas A&M here in College Station, or any other campus in Texas that did pass concealed carry on campus, to see if there's a correlation between such as crime statistics going down, whether it be burglary or more serious crimes, if you
Sure.
get what I'm saying?
Sure. I think I understand the question. Does anybody know whether or not we looked at crime statistics
I don't, but
on
but
campus?
it's not just those two. It's all 4 your public schools in Texas that have had to abide by the law. So.
The decision here for this campus that we've been looking at crime statistics for this past fall semester compared to the last 20 years before that, where there was no concealed carry.
So I think I understand your question, but it suggests that we have the authority to change the law. And of course we don't, and which is why you see in the charge that we're balancing this question of student safety and privacy, and the integrity of the law as it stands. So we have to take the law as is given to us. My guess is we probably didn't look at the crime statistics because part of our charge is not to determine whether or not we want to abide by the law or not abide by the law based on what the crime data tells us. That's really a responsibility of the legislature, and you'd have to go to the legislature on that one. I'm pretty sure we didn't because we don't have any control over whether or not to comply with the law, and so that's where our focus is. Mr. Chancellor. Everybody, Mr. Chancellor is the district's risk manager, emergency coordinator. He's the one that works with the chief and keeps us all as safe as possible and ready to respond in an emergency if we have to.
I just have a couple of comments, and the first one is that, and I haven't heard this from anybody, but I know that roll of students right there knows this. Once law enforcement becomes involved and you have had the opportunity to draw your weapon or you have put the threat down, once law enforcement arrives on the scene, you need to have that weapon on the ground, not in your hand. Please understand that, because you're going to have some really nasty words directed at you. And everybody's seen the movies in the past 20 years when law enforcement arrives on scene and the kind of language that they use. Well, trust me, that's the kind of language that they use at people who have a weapon. And they're not able to determine, because you don't have a badge, they're not able to determine who you are and if you're a concealed carry person, who the bad guy is and who the bad guy is not. So please, if a situation like that arises and you are a concealed carry person, please put your weapon on the ground. For one thing, they're very expensive, and you drop them, they get scratched up. But it's something that you really need to know, that once law enforcement arrives on the scene, please do not have it in your hand.
Thank you. He's not only an emergency coordinator, he's also a former police chief, fireman, so You're hearing it from at least one expert. What else? Anything else? Rich?
Okay, hey, let's everybody thank Jordan. I know she's been running around with that microphone
Thank you, Jordan.
most of the day. And thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys coming out here today and providing us your input. It's really going to be valuable as we move forward with this process. And we appreciate all of your insightful questions and the respectful way that everybody was able to discuss such a sensitive topic. So,
And Rich, if you all are continue to be interested in this, there will be a draft of a final report. I'm certain we will put it on the website. Follow us on the website, and please feel free to share with us your thoughts and feelings when we get that final draft up there, so that by the time we make it a final, we really have a much better chance of having done the right thing by Blinn College and you. Thanks.
thanks, guys.
Okay.
He was so good. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Keegan, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I hope this was a good thing. Good.
Oh my stuff.
Absolutely. You know what? And we may, I don't know how CL wants to do it, but we may call on you to share your thoughts and opinions about what happened here today. That'd be great.